the regular Board of Education meeting on September 21st, 2023 at 6:32 p.m. on Thursday, September 21st, at the solstice, the equinox, I'm sorry, the equinox, heavy. In the boardroom of Oak Park, Northern Forest, and ask for a roll call.
Mr. Richmond,
Here.
Dr. Monroe. Here. Mr. Arkin,
Here.
Ms. Williams Lee, Dr. Livingston, Mr. Brandhorst,
Here.
Mr. Costi.
Here. I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint brought against an employer or against legal counsel of the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation for a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the local government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed but shall be open to the public and posted in accordance with this act. Collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives of deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees and litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. May I have a second? Second. And a roll call, please.
Dr. Monroe.
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Ms. Williams Lee, Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Brandhorst,
Yes.
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
Mr. Costi.
Yes. No? Okay, I'm just waiting for. What he can do this. Okay. We are resuming open session. Welcome. And our first order of business are the introductory reports. And Dr. Jonathan, could you please take the name of our students showcase?
Absolutely. We have one student showcase today. It is our Women in Leadership Club. And so I'm turning it over to Hawkins to kick us off.
All right. Hello, I'm happy this afternoon or this evening to welcome our Women in Leadership Club. Tonight we have some student representatives and we have Ms. Akwada back there. And they are going to come on up and speak a little bit too about what they have planned for this year.
Hi guys,
Oh,
I'm Phyllis Kreyer. I'm a senior here at Opera and I'm the president of Women in Leadership this year. And this is my fourth year in Women in Leadership.
Hi, I'm Eliana. I'm also a senior here and I'm the community outreach coordinator for OPRF Women in Leadership.
So we just wanted to give you a little overview of what we do at the club. So we have two fabulous sponsors, Ms. Coconut, which is Beth, who is right over there, and Ms. Gunn. And they're just both wonderful people. There's 10 officers on our officer team, and then we have 40 to 45 members. And one of our biggest goals this year is just increasing membership. And because we want to build it up back from COVID. And so we just want to create a space where everybody can learn through all different domains, guest speakers, activities, arts and crafts, yoga classes. That's our next week's activity. And so we just want to strive to welcome all backgrounds, races, ethnicities, just to make sure that they feel represented in our activities. And we meet on Thursday mornings at 7:15.
So as I said before, I'm the community outreach coordinator for Women in Leadership. And this year we're really trying to make a movement away from just boring presentations in the room about women in leadership and stuff. So we're working on a lot of stuff in and outside of our OPRF community. So today we had a guest speaker for the first time this year, and that was Katie Schultz, who is a mentor in the business incubator program and a very accomplished woman in the business community. So we had her come and speak with our club, and this was very inspiring. So we're trying to have 3 guest speakers, and we do have 3 guest speakers a semester. So this week we focused on business, and then next month we have Faith Cole coming in to talk about her journey in the education system. And then in December, we have a philanthropy group coming in to talk to us about what they do. So we also, besides guest speakers, we also want to do a lot more volunteering inside the classroom and outside on the weekends and other times. So we've partnered with New Moms multiple times this year and last year, and we have our first volunteer opportunity outside of school on October 8th at New Moms. And we've worked with them a lot, and we also want to do some stuff with inside the club so everyone can do it by writing letters to the senior citizens.
And so every month we have a different focus. So we have December. December and January we do give back month, which we do adopt a family, and we do a lot of stuff in the club just to make sure that if you are unavailable to do stuff outside the club, you have other commitments that you can get your hand, you can kind of just get your toes wet in the philanthropy world. Okay, so I was kind of thinking about this, and we have one big event, a season, right? Okay. So in the fall, we have breast cancer awareness event, which is new this year. All the proceeds are going to Bright Pink, and actually shirts went on sale today. It's this, but in pink. So in the winter, we have Women in STEM Day, which I actually brought you guys some packets to pass around, which was last year's here.
thank you.
Yep. Those are last year's Women in STEM. That was last year's agenda for Women in STEM Day. And so we're really trying to work on that and make it bigger and better and just more fun, which is so fabulous. And then we also have the tampon drive, which has been Women in Leadership's biggest thing every single year. Last year, we raised over $3,000 in pads and tampons, which is amazing to see. And then, and in the spring, we have Children's Week, which is all focused on sexual assault awareness.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Hi, well, thank you for coming. I love your enthusiasm. I love your. So what got you both involved in, and staying, in this club for the 4 years?
Well, actually, so coming into freshman year, our freshman year was all on Zoom. And so coming into freshman year, as you can see, probably I love to talk. I was like so extremely worried that I wasn't gonna be able to like find a place here because I was online and I didn't know a lot of people, and I'm so happy that I found Women in Leadership. Like Thursday mornings, like I looked forward to them. I met upperclassmen. It made me feel like I had like a sense of belonging within the school. And so then when I came back sophomore year, I was like, that was my thing. Like I knew I was gonna do it. And I just feel very passionate about women, getting lots of different fields and lots of different professions and doing lots of work. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's definitely my answer.
Oh, I would just say basically the same, like starting this club 4 years ago as a member. And then I just really loved it, and I like surrounding myself with the people in it and the opportunities it gave. So I stuck with it.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful place to be.
Excellent. Thank you so much. and Thanks for your enthusiasm.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Next up is our student council liaison report, and we have our representative here today.
Hello, if you didn't meet me last month, my name is Maren Bellis. I'm the student council board representative. For the last 2 weeks, student council has been working really hard to prepare for homecoming. This week, we're in the current process of our spirit week. Our spirit days were PJ versus Pop Out, Biker versus Surfer, Sideline Supporter versus Girl Master, Jersey Shore versus Jersey, and Orange versus Blue. Student council thought these days very hard. We decided to do every day as a versus so that students felt more comfortable having like options, because sometimes like students don't have everything or like the resources to like dress up as certain things. And we received so much positive feedback from both staff and students. Last night our student council meeting was a little bit longer than usual. We decorated the student center and the main entrance to get students the homecoming spirit. We hope you guys all saw the orange and blue when walking in tonight. Tomorrow, student council members will be meeting right after school to decorate for our disco dance. And all of our meetings have been focused on homecoming. And next week, we are really excited to start talking about service projects and upcoming events.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, for the superintendent's report, I have just 2 quick announcements here. First, last month, you may recall, I shared that Dr. Tyler Williams Jr. has been named the 2023 Illinois History Teacher of the Year by the Guild of American Institute of American History, which is the nation's leading organization dedicated to K-12 American history education. Since then, we've learned he is one of just, drum roll please, 10 finalists for the 2023 National History Teacher of the Year Award, and we anticipate this announcement coming any day now. So keep your fingers crossed, pay attention to our website, social media, wherever, and hopefully we'll be able to announce some fabulous news in the coming days. So the second announcement, I want to highlight an upcoming event that's part of our Sesquith Centennial celebration this year. On Wednesday, October 4th at 7 p.m., the Oak Park River Forest Museum, which is over at 129 Lake Street in Oak Park, just over here, will host a grand opening for its exhibit, Ever Changing Yet the Same, Oak Park High School at 150. For the next 2 years, the exhibit will feature memorabilia, yearbooks, school spirit wear from throughout the decades, photos, dance bids, scrapbooks, and a wide range of other artifacts that will help tell the rich story of OPRF, which enrolled its first students in 1873 in a classroom at Lake and Forest and graduated his first 3 alumni in 1877. Special thanks to Frank Lebo, Executive Director of the museum, who has been a terrific partner in planning the events marking this very special year for OPRF. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Lisa? Boyer?
2 FOIA requests submitted and 1 resolved.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next segment is for employee recognition. And I'll start it. Today, we're pleased to continue our employee recognition program for this school year. This program is being sponsored by Oak Park Bank, a Wintrust Community Bank, again this year. The bank's motto is to work hard and to be an asset to the people and communities they serve. They salute the faculty, staff of D200 and are proud to sponsor the district's employee recognition program. Mallory Daniels Dixon is here to present gifts to our September winners. So we are going to share in the wealth, and Tim will take the lead.
First, we would like to congratulate Melissa Godinez, who was selected as the Teacher of the Month. Here's what people who submitted the nominations had to say about Melissa. She is a phenomenal teacher and deserves to be nominated. She is always smiling and in good spirits. She also lifts the mood of everyone around her. She's an incredible mentor who brightens up every student's day. Congratulations again, Melissa. Is there anything you would like to say?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm very honored. It means a lot to me as a teacher of 15 years now to be honored by the district. So thank you so much.
Congratulations and thank you. And that will.
Yes, we have a plaque for you here that looks a lot like this, and we will be able to deliver that to you tomorrow, Melissa. So congratulations.
And a card.
And a card. Oh, and yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, secondly, I would like to extend congratulations to our September Employee of the Month, Philly Nash. Good. Here's what people who submitted the nomination had to say about you. She is always working for the students, and she is always very helpful. She is always positive. She is up to a challenge with a happy heart and smile, and will do anything for the kids to make this a better place to be. She has the highest energy and is always willing to help out. She treats students with respect and never assumes that we are doing something wrong. I think she really just cares about the students here at OPRF and makes us feel like a priority. Ms. Nash basically holds the school together. She's too good at her job and deserves this award. Always so kind, helpful, and generous. I can always go to her whenever I need a good laugh or just need my spirits raised. So congratulations.
I am not that person. But thank you very much. I really do appreciate being recognized for Employee of the Month. I do love these children in the school very much, so that I guess go above and beyond more than I should, but it's in me, so I'm just appreciative to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great. You're not done. You're not done.
Wait, we have to get a photo.
Looks like you got a fan club over there.
I would like to extend our congratulations to our volunteer of the month, Don Vogel. Here's what people who submitted nominations had to say about Don. As co-chair of OPRF's Sesquicentennial Committee, retiree Don Vogel has been the driving force behind this year's 150th anniversary celebration. Being in charge of observing such a momentous milestone was daunting. Don helped figure out the initial effort to begin pulling ideas together in early 2022. And for the past year and a half, he's been tireless in continuing to lead and shape the efforts of about 20 core volunteers. The Sesquicentennial Challenge to log 150 hours of service around the world was entirely his idea. Right. This is the capstone of our celebration, demonstrating that OPRF isn't just celebrating past history, but also striving to have an enormous impact on the world today. Don has been instrumental in launching the Sesquicentennial events in this year, including creating the idea of the 150,000 hours of community service. Mr. Vogel has done an amazing job of leading the Sesquicentennial Steering Committee and sharing his expertise on the OPRF history. Superior performance, exemplary commitment, student focus, customer service, effectiveness, and professionalism. Congratulations, Don. Is there anything you'd like to say? The floor is yours.
Wanted to make sure you understood that 150,000 hours of service. We're asking parents, students, grandparents, alumni, anybody who's got a connection with Oak Park and Forest High School. We're also proud that house Karen and I are first as co-chairs today, we crossed the 14% mark, which means we budgeted 20,068 hours so far. So we're close. So we hope that all of you as board members will register your time as volunteers on the board, encouraging anybody you know who's in service related to the community. Get a shirt. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you.
There you are.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and I'll also tell you on the 4th, when the museum opens, get a copy of the Wednesday Journal that day. They're doing a 50-page spread on these. Wow.
Okay. We now move to public comments and Lisa, we have,
One public comment in person
okay,
tonight.
let me, so public comments, please limit public comment concerning matters within the jurisdiction of the board to 3 minutes. It's not, this section is not intended to be a dialogue with the board. Response time to any question will be up to 2 weeks, so.
So tonight we have Ms. Jenna Lemming Jacobson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jenna Lemming Jacobson. I am an Oak Park resident, 2 kids, and I teach Spanish at Dominican University, so I do have a connection to River Forest. I'm sure you know that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and I'm hoping to see action from the board and the superintendent on an effort that can help prevent firearm suicide in the OPRF community. I know I don't need to explain the crisis level of teen mental health to anyone here, but sometimes data can help remind us of the scale and scope of a problem. The National Youth Survey conducted by the CDC showed that 20% of high school students
had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. 20% of OPRF student population is over 660 students for comparison. Most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. In fact, 90% of suicide attempts with a gun result in death, which is a much higher fatality rate than any other form of self-harm. This contributes to the fact that 41% of child suicides involve a gun, which is why, along with comprehensive mental and behavioral health supports, we need to make sure the youth in our community do not have unsupervised access to firearms. The National Comorbidity Study Adolescent Survey showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning homes self-reported of having easy access to guns in their home. The difference between whether a kid survives a difficult time may be determined simply by whether or not they have access to a firearm. Parents and caregivers can make sure they are securely storing all of the guns in their homes and vehicles by making sure those guns are locked, unloaded with the ammunition locked separately to prevent firearm suicide, as well as unintentional shootings that tragically kill or injure 8 kids or teens every day in the United States and lead to the death of more than 100 children every year. Educating adults about secure firearm storage is important, also as a part of a comprehensive approach to prevent school shootings. From a study published by the U.S. Secret Service, we know that 76% of school shooters under 18 obtain the guns they use from the home. Unfortunately, as the leading cause of death for children and teens, gun violence is a public health crisis that should be addressed by our public schools. Nearly 2,100 children under the age of 18 are killed with guns every year, with an average of 6 kids a day. And we can't measure the trauma suffered by the survivors of gun violence or the stress caused by the constant threat of violence in our schools and communities across the country. Because promoting public awareness about secure firearm storage, resources from trusted messengers are a part of a comprehensive policy solution to firearm suicide prevention in particular, and gun violence more generally. More than 10 million students nationwide now attend a school that provides secure storage notifications, but sadly, none of those students go to OPRF. D200 parents and families should receive information about secure firearm storage prior to the required lockdown drill in reference to Suicide Awareness Month in September, and anytime there is context for this reminder. This information should also be required reading and registration materials for the 2024-25 school year, just like other health and safety policies. If safety is a priority of the D200 school board and Superintendent Johnson, you will engage in educating the parents and families in the D200 community about firearm storage as consistently as with the same level of intention you bring to other matters of school security, student well-being. Because if we can prevent even one death or firearm injury, it is our responsibility to do so. And thank you for allowing me the extra time.
Thank you.
And those times.
Thank you. Okay. It also is part of public comment. We have a public hearing, which we will begin. So at 7:55 p.m., I call this public hearing to order on Thursday, September the 21st, 2023 for the Oak Park and River Forest High School 2023-2024 budget. This budget was placed on display for public inspection on August 18th, 2023 for 30 days. Per state code, notice of this public hearing has been posted on our website and appeared in the Friday, August 18th, 2023 edition of the Chicago Tribune. This time I ask for any public comments regarding the 2023-2024 budget.
Mr. Coffey, I have no public comments for the 2023-24 budget.
At 7:55 p.m., I am now closing this public hearing. And that completes our public comment section. And we will now move to our action, and starting with our consent agenda. That's action, but it's one. So our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any board member would like to have removed. Seeing none? Okay, I therefore move to approve the consent items as follows. Approval of the open and closed session minutes of August 24, September 6, and 7, 2023, and the declaration of the audio tapes of the closed session minutes of December 2021 be destroyed. B, approval of the personnel recommendations, including new hires, transfers, resignations, and retirements. C, approval of additional members of the Culture, Climate, and Behavior Committee. D, approval of the purchase of 1,000 Chromebooks from CDW in the amount of $401,000. E, approval of the resolution of the 2023-2024 mass transit exclusion as presented. F, approval of the contractual agreement with Boone Health for a total cost of $40,000. This amount is planned for the 2023-2024 budget, and no additional funds are being requested. G, approval of the consulting contract between OPRF High School and Michael Caraccio as presented. And H, approval of the August and September 2023 check disbursements and financial resolutions, including the payroll resolutions for September and October, and approval of the July 2023 treasurer's report as presented.
Second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Grindhouse?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams Lee?
Yes.
Dr. Lucaston?
Yes.
Dr. Mahara?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Mr. Arkin?
Yes.
Mr. Kowski?
Yes. Motion passes, and we move to our action item. Items, sorry.
Legal?
Sure.
We have to make the motion first.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Okay, so I moved to adopt the fiscal 2024 budget as presented. And discussion, please.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, we have Brian Imhoff online. We also have, of course, our system services, RBS here. I don't know if you all have anything you want to go through in a preliminary way, or we could just open up straight to questions. So, maybe since we've already seen this presented, any questions is a good place to start. Hey.
Brent?
You go first. The question I had has to do with revenue and I just want to make sure I understand correctly in terms, because we're going to be going into shortly our levy discussions. And the budget anticipates levies of 2.5%. Is that correct? Going forward, or is it maxed out levy? I'm trying to figure out exactly where we're at with our projections.
You want me to take that one, Tony?
Sure.
Okay, so the budget for the upcoming year assumes that we are levying at a 3.5% increase for CPI, even though actual CPI is coming in at 5%. And then in future years, we have estimated that CPI will be 2.5% and that we would levy at the max in those years.
Okay, so that's for actually the levies calendar, right?
Correct. Yes. So 2023 levy coming up this December.
Which gets paid to us in 2024.
And Brian,
Correct.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, it gets, we administer it in 2024.
This is a small point, but I just want to clarify that CPI is not at 5%. CPI for this year is actually projected higher than 5%, or actually it is higher than 5%. It's that our cap is set at 5%. Could you clarify that, Brian?
Yes, that's correct. So actual CPI is above 5, but we are limited to a maximum of 5.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so this is just the assumption We'll have those levy discussions in the next few months. Right, okay. That was Grant.
Yeah, I think a lot of the materials address the evolution of the tentative budget to the final budget. I was curious if you had any observations though regarding this year's budget as compared to last year's, either on revenue or expenditures. I was wondering if anything happened to pop out to you as you were looking last year this year.
For me, I compared what our percentage increases were this year to what we were looking at last year, and we're falling right in line with the numbers we want to see, about a 5% increase total in salary. And that's for a budgeted amounts. That's if we hire all of the open positions. Generally, that doesn't, we never get fully staffed throughout a year. So there's always a little bit of room there. Benefits at a 2.4% increase this year is really good in this market. One thing that really jumped out was our purchase services last year went up about 30%. This year, we're budgeting an 18% increase, so we're not seeing as much jump in there. And then digging into kind of our purchase services, as you get into the very detailed items in the state budget form, when you look at our ed fund, a large portion of that purchase service is directly impacting students. So we're not just buying software programs for the business office or something like that, but we're actually seeing those dollars translate to impact on student learning.
Okay, anything on the revenue side?
Revenue, I spend a lot more of my time focused on the expenditures because we control expenditures a lot more than we can control the revenue that comes in. Interest rates particularly are at a really good time right now. I don't know that we'll see that continue through the entire fiscal year. So that's just one thing we'll continue to monitor and work with PMA on to make sure that we've got a kind of a sound plan of making sure we have enough cash available through our liquid accounts, but then also investing out and locking up as much of this long-term money as we can at a good rate. The only concern I have with the budget right now is just we have to monitor Fund 90. It's a smaller fund, so it gets less revenue. If we look like we're going towards the end of the year and we might be at a negative, we might be looking at having to do a transfer of funds, so it's just something that we know to keep on our radar and watch throughout the year. That's our fire safety and health safety prevention.
Okay, thanks for
Yeah.
the script for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions on the budget? I would like to, express my compliments to Brian, et cetera, in terms of this process of, through the different communications. This is the third time we've seen things, and I think the communication is at the right level, and we're getting good information in an understandable way, and there's a lot there. With that, may we please call the roll?
Mr. Winfrey? Yes. Dr. Lipscomb?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Dr. Marlowe?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And Mr. Cox?
Yes, the motion passes unanimously. And we move to I move to approve the resolution recognizing the 2024 semifinalists of the National Merit Scholarship Corporation and the College Board National African American, Hispanic, and Indigenous Recognition Programs.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? And may we please have a roll call?
Mr. Arkin?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey?
Yes.
Dr. Lipscomb?
Yes.
Dr. Marlowe?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Rizzo?
Yes.
And Mr. Cox?
Yes. That completes our action for tonight. So our next order of business is discussion and board goals. And so this is a continuation of our lengthy discussion that we had on Saturday. And so what I would like us to do is, just to kind of recreate. We have, each of the, the subgroups, we have, two different goals that were framed up. And so today, my proposal to the board is that we go through these. And in doing so, what we want to do is because this is all kind of hot off the press, we're seeing it, the fruit of the work that we've been doing during the last 7 days of what it is, and then we can talk about, what I want to do is there anything in here that, does not have board consensus? Because these were done as subgroups, and we want to make sure that what we have has board consensus. Are there questions on it? And then once we kind of pair that and look at it, then we can have a discussion on, how big of a bite are we taking of the apple, and it will need to obviously sit in the hands of the administration to, provide us feedback on once we provide you a draft, because we can then determine timing and such if there are adjustments. So with that said, why don't we go in the order that they're in this piece of paper and allow the individual subgroups to kind of talk through what is here. I would try to focus on maybe anything that's drastically, enhanced or different than when we last met. Anything that's new, and we'll go from there. So, communications and community engagement team.
Okay, so, and we, summarized our discussion from Saturday, and I would say there's, not anything here that is drastically different. Really try to make sure we have the goals succinct and that we have the goals stated, in a way that's clear in terms of what we're looking to deliver. So with this particular goal, our statement is that D200 connects with an effectively, equitably informed community through strong dashboard and community outreach. So if you see under goals, what we have around our dashboard, timing, and also looking at how we keep something, add very much alive on the OPR website. So that's the goal. And then ideas around community outreach and engagement, but it's going to require the development of a plan to actually that we can execute against. So what we show here are some potential things that will be in that plan, but the goal would be to have that plan done by January. Grant, anything you would add?
Yeah, there's probably a couple things. One is, we think that these are board goals, but there's a collaboration that has to occur with the administration. Obviously, we're gonna have our board sensibility on what we think is good to have in a dashboard. But of course, that requires partnering with the administration to actually get something executed and post to the website. And the same thing is true for the community outreach and engagement concept, because we were initially really thinking about families that are just simply less engaged for any number of reasons with the school and aren't maybe able to show up at meetings and committee events and so forth. That also necessitates cooperation with the administration, because we've got to have some way to try to identify what families to prioritize, because they're lower touch point with the school. And the last thing I would say is, I think we talked on Saturday about the concept of potentially having board members assigned in pairs to different topics or goals. And I think we were, tell me if you disagree, but the idea is that ultimately, Tom, you would designate a duo to be assigned to this topic, kind of run with the ball and work with the administration, be reporting back to the board, and also receiving input from board members as the work progresses. So I think that's our verbal summary of what you see on page 1, community. Communication and community engagement. Forward.
Okay. Clarifying questions from others. I guess I have one for discussion and it relates to your last comment, Graham, which in terms of how we do the work. So, and I'm focused really on the very first thing, which is the board develops a dashboard. So, and what is this, we can do it in pairs, which is just 2 board members working together. Or is this perceived to need to be a committee of some type, which would mean, a larger group that would need other membership on, et cetera?
I feel like I'm related, so maybe for that. I'm looking at this, like the forum listening sessions. So let's say your small group, the communications subcommittee, pair, the communications pair decides you want 6 listening sessions over the course of the next year, board members going out and meeting. I'm assuming that seems like a lot to put on just like Judy. So you would then assign that out to the board members as well. That's a question.
Both good questions, and what I would say it would be having, and this is our governance discussion, so we'll go there as well. But it really gets into having some primary accountability for it, right? So for the planning, the development, how it goes, and then being able to pull in other, other peers, other groups, to actually be able to work on it. When it comes to the dashboard, it's something that came up Saturday amongst multiple groups, as we we're having a discussion. And that's one where I honestly believe it is worthwhile to step back and say, how might we get some support for doing this, and it may be an area to do it effectively and to do it well, or there might need to be some external support. Because I think to put it on administration would be challenging, and developing dashboards, the payoff will be worth it, and they take time and they take energy to develop. So I think that would be challenging for even a committee given time to do without some additional support.
Maybe my 2 cents on your questions would be, probably a committee makes sense if that's describing board members working with members of the administration. And then to Dr. Maharaj's question, I think we're only talking about the assigned duo coming up with a concept, bringing a draft concept to the board and saying, do we have consensus to do this? From there, the how you do it, it's a different question, because it wouldn't be just those 2 rolling out. Ideally, everybody's participating in the execution.
Dr. Jones.
I do have a clarifying question, just, you're probably saying this twice now, but I just want to make sure that it's clear for the dashboard. Could you just briefly, high level, describe the scope of what would be included in this dashboard? Or is that yet to be determined, of course, by the group? Is it limited to dashboard on, progress on board goals, overall school metrics for student achievement and all of our activities? I'm trying to get
And my thought was really around the board goals, so how do we communicate board goals? But also, how do we make sure connection and integration to other things that may already exist, that might be relevant or connected to it, but looking at how do we as a board report out what we're doing, or how do we show progress on what we're doing? And because we do have other areas around finance, and I'm sure there are things with the school that we may be able to think of a way to perhaps show it or reflect it in a way that's easy to find, and easy to understand and consume, but would not see the board going into the kinds of things that should be reported through the administration.
I would agree with that. And if you think about our discussion on Saturday, we were talking about things like, well, perhaps, a dashboard that shows our progress along the Project 2 Gantt. We also talked about fiscal stewardship, things like fund balance. Those are definitely kind of in the board member zone. But if you think about effective dashboards that face the community and our school community. I think things like academic performance, which would be more in the zone of the administration, really ought to be quite adjacent to the board goals, so that persons in our community aren't having to look in different places for basic information on how's our school performing.
Yeah, and our board, yes, our board goals cover all of those areas, so I would agree, you know, it is the. You used the term the other day that, but it's for the, you know, the dashboard of dashboards, right? I mean, it's consolidation of what all of the different goals are.
Yeah, so part of the communication piece is really making it easier for the community to find information that right now it's not very easy to find, right? We have a lot of things out there, but it's not organized or perhaps even structured in ways that are easy to get the information that you're looking for. And so we envision this being that maybe we're growing over time, but to we start having a consolidated way to support council teams.
Other questions on what is in written and what has been discussed? I guess I have a couple of questions really down for the group. Is there, as we look at this, is there anything that is written, because this was done by two, right? And that any, you know, we're not saying this is all what we would include in our board work.
Yeah, that's why it's labeled just a draft.
Yep. So is there anything here that, you know, is a commitment of us that you're not behind? Because we need to make sure what we're doing is indeed a, you know, a forum.
I mean, I'll just be candid, I still am struggling a little bit in seeing the dashboards idea as being a board goal or board responsibility as opposed to a list of superintendent's goals. I think it's a good thing to do, but I think that all of the work in creating it, all the work in maintaining it, and the work in gathering disparate reporting and data is all going to fall to the administration to do. I have no objection to it, but that's just kind of what the one thing that I'm struggling with.
It's a valid concern, but it's the reason that item 1A says develop a dashboard mockup. So I think the extent of what we're saying we would actually do as board members is merely create a mockup. And it's the kind of things we want to see in it and how data should be ideally expressed, and that's the extent of it. And the idea of collaborating then with the administration on, okay, well, how would you actually build a web page? How would the data flow into it? Who's maintaining it? I think we agree with you. That yeah, I mean, it's not going to be, you know, board members, you know, programming the website, things like that. And that's the reason the goal, the stated objective ends at least creating a mockup.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just maybe, but I've been looking at the marketing storytelling section and the committee used OKRF as a responsible steward of community resources. And I'm just thinking about, I'm wondering whether we should have a more transparent somewhere, because that has been the complaint, right? It's that some community don't find the communications to be transparent. If we could improve that, that would be good.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be a good add.
Other questions on this? So I guess for you, Greg, you know, we need, now you need to opine on this, right, of how this fits in terms of the burden on the administration, et cetera. How because it will require resources from the board and the administration. Obviously, as a board goal, it would be a signal of a priority of what we want done.
but, you know. You get a voice in terms of just what the impact is.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that ultimately that is something that is best assessed when we take a look at the breadth of these goals, right? But so far, as you take a look at this, and it's my clarifying question. Okay, first you put the defense, of course, and I think my admin team does as well. However, with these two goals that we have here, they're both ones that, you know, that we have discussed at the admin team. We've had different dashboards in the past. We're looking to simplify some dashboards we've had on our previous website, making those more accessible and regarding communications, we certainly have a strategic approach to that, as you know, from the audit we did last spring. So there's nothing here that's a new direction. It underscores the importance of these, and you know, we'll continue to just take a look at this all as we go through and see how the sun goes.
Okay, we can move, I mean, very, very well. Appreciate the homework and the effort, and I think we're ready to go to number 2.
And just realizing number 2 on the paper that we have to repeat the goal statement for number 1. The goal statement for number 2, the governor's area, really around D200 is a high performing board. I mean, that was the discussion that we had on Saturday. So we'll make that correction. But this one really, there are 3 areas, the objectives under here. The first is aligning on board norms, talked about, and also that includes evaluation methods, like how we're going to evaluate with ourselves, using what methods and how frequently. And underneath that gets to also part of what Graham has started to speak to is having the board president really look at how do you leverage pairs, from the board to actually work on different topics, issues, and think through and come back with proposals and look at how do we use that more effectively, how do we do that more effectively, to be able to divide some of the work amongst us, so that we can get things moving forward even faster. So that's one of the piece. Having a regular retreat is worthwhile for us on Saturday to spend time, just having time to think and work through some of these things, and so we are doing that. And then really just ongoing and comparison and analysis of our effectiveness. So what's out there, what are the leading practices, what are the peer institutions and organizations, but how do we, kind of also look evaluate ourselves internally, but also have some kind of comparisons with some kind of other perspectives to actually bring in. So that whole piece around norms evaluation, that's what we meant under this first section. So I'll stop there to see if there are any kind of question, clarification on that piece, or if we're able in here.
Yeah, you're talking about objective 1.
It's in the 1, right?
Yeah, to me, objective 1 is really just about documenting. How to document that, these are our norms and this is how we would like to operate.
How do we know we're doing this?
I think the only thing I would say is regular is very big term, so if they can set a goal of. Nice.
Like
Even if it's revised.
Right.
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 Add in here each year.
Yeah.
Towards each year, and I forgot to make that add.
Not that's a good point. There's specificity for our SMART goals.
And the idea of board member report compares on different topics and issues. It's a way I've seen other public and private boards work effectively in the past. Arguably, you could read this as board president at his or her discretion is able to effectively delegate, because not everything may be suited for that approach. But I personally would like to see the board president have that option at his or her disposal.
That's what so I'm fully supportive of what you've outlined here. I think.
And then the second objective that we have under here is really determining the right mix of committee liaison assignments to support board goals. And so thinking about defining the board member responsibilities, looking at the list that we have of the various organization committee assignments, and really how do we go about understanding what the needs are of those organizations? How does that align with the needs of the board? And have a strategy for how we work with those groups particularly if there's an opportunity for us to shift how we're doing now, and it may not be the same going forward. So we're very thoughtful about that, and we've given the amount of time and effort that's needed, I think for the board to be involved and connected, making sure that we're in the places where we have the most value and where it's most gonna help to, continue to move forward what the board wants to do and what we decide on as being our goals. I think some things we do out of tradition, and that may have been great at one point in time, but may not be as effective going forward. So being able to assess and understand that and where we work and how we work, is what the second goal is about. And objective rather than Graham.
Yeah, I think Audrey hits that point very well, which is highest best deployment of board person time that in a way that best reflects the goals. I think we all know that there's a net widening potential here where we could potentially spread ourselves too thin. The one other thing I would add is that bullet there, define board member responsibilities, that was my add, and it's because whether you're assigned to liaison to something or participate in a committee, there's got to be clear expectations around what your responsibility is to feed back information to the board. So for example, I got dispatched to the Booster Club meeting, which was terrific. I was delighted to give a report out on what the board's been working on and hear what they were working on. But there's no accountability for me to come back to you and say, this is what I heard. This is what's FYI. If there's something we need to consider, we need to consider it. In a prior board I was on, we had a point in the meeting where you go around the horn and board members would report out if they had a stint of liaison service in the prior 2 weeks. But we also got to a point where you fill out a short form. This is what I did, here's what I heard, here's what I reported, this is an action item, what does this follow up? We don't have to do forms, but rather than just simply a board member went to something and a tree falls in the forest, did it make a noise? I think there should be some responsibility that we have to come back and provide a loop of information to the rest of the board.
All right, well, I agree, we do have the reports, like there's a line there for the Booster report, in 13 of the agenda, but what we haven't done is formalize expectations around it. And so.
I'm carrying a request forward from one of our groups, but I'm sure it's to some extent would be echoed by some others. This is from the Scholarship Foundation that had a meeting this past week, and so I explained we're in the process of figuring out how our representation will work, that it would likely be discussed that later that weekend and so on and so forth. But just like you did for the Booster Club meeting. There may be some existing committees, organizations, whatever, that really wish, or in some cases actually need representation from the board. And so I think we will need some sort of process to make sure we're covering those until we figure out this, if we stick with this October 31 deadline, we need a process to get us through October, even if it is just status quo with things we've done in the past.
Yeah, we thought by October 31st, could we potentially have that conversation that I think has been in the queue, which is to go through line by line Tom's most excellent spreadsheet. I'm assuming at some point we were gonna talk through each one of those and decide this issue of what should or shouldn't be deployed to.
The other thing we have, there's another document that, so one, I'm strongly in support of this. This was a goal that we really earmarked last year, and we made some progress, but we didn't bring the ball into the end zone, okay? This was one of the shortcomings in terms of really outlining expectations and such, and there are practices that exist, but they're not formal practices, and we should formalize it. The second document really outlines where we have certain obligation, where stuff is in policy. I mean, there's some things that we have that's in policy. What Greg just referred to you to is, there's requirements of the scholarship committee by their bylaws. So there's a bunch of meat to this. So I'm strongly in support. The biggest challenge I see with what's written, which is really, I think October 31st is aggressive for the work that needs to be done. I mean, this is not, there's some work that needs to be done here. So, I mean, and that's, I know you're just putting a date on it. But I think there's a bunch of work that needs to be done and we need to attack it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go backwards, just for a clarifying question. In the introduction includes evaluation methods. In the details, it's, you know, I mean, in terms of the specific bullets, there's no reference to we will do a self-evaluation, right, of our goals.
Yeah.
I thought that would be kind of a strong position to do. Is there a reason for that, or?
So, you know, doing a self-evaluation each year, I thought that would be something that ends up getting added to the norms document, but you're saying it's important enough to you that we probably should have bulleted it here.
In my mind, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll add it.
Thank you.
And the last one is one that we have put it to have a discussion sooner rather than later, put by 10:31. But there was feedback about having other stakeholders participate on the board. And so the objective is written as discuss and decide whether and how to add other stakeholders, voices, representation, such as students or faculty to the board by the end of October. And really being able to clearly identify and articulate, you know, the why, and whether or not being on the board is the best way to achieve what it is that we hope to achieve. And if it is decided that we want to go that direction, then what does that look like? What is the best and most effective way to actually leverage the voice of other stakeholders as part of the board? So this is a broader discussion we actually need to have as a board to determine, you know, how to do you want to do it, and if so, how to do it.
I have a question, but I'm not sure whether this goes under governance or communication, so I'll put it out there, right? But it relates to that last point about voices and hearing from them. This is Greg and I had a conversation last week where I said one thing I wish I had done, and in my 2+ years on the board, is shadowed a student for a day, because we get a very curated you know, exposure to the school, and the school is very different from my high school experience, and so I feel that would be, and you know, it's a little tricky to like make that a board expectation because people have day jobs and so on, they're not necessarily flexible to allow them to do that, but that's kind of what some of what I'd like to get at is how can we get a less filtered, more frank sense of what's happening. Does that make sense? And I don't know where that looks here, so I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the discussion for us to have, because when you think about this, you think about the work of the board. And the work of the board is around government, right? And so government isn't always as fun or, you know, maybe as exciting as some of the other things that, you know, perhaps, you know, faculty and administration and staff need to do with students. I think it is important to voice our stakeholders and making it appropriate for what the work of the board is. And so I think that's the question that we need to really have.
Yeah, I find some of this problematic. All right. I think we need to be able to hear from our stakeholders. But we are the elected officials. This is our board table, we make decisions. Yes, we need input from other people, we need to hear from other people. We've talked for some time now about how we do that with a student. And I know Greg has done some research, just hasn't come back to us. My concern with voicing, and it sounds like we want to add people to the board. All right, which we can't do. All right, we can't just arbitrarily add people to the board because we think we need. To have them, I mean, they can't vote. They can't be decision makers. We can garner input from people. We need to determine, and that goes all the way back to the first goal area of communication and how we do that. I think it's very problematic to talk about two areas of stakeholders, being students and faculty. Because that seems to me that that's already a predetermined outcome. And before the discussion's been had.
Well.
Okay. I think I respond to, so when you opened by saying you're concerned, it was specifically with item number 3 under governance.
Yes.
Okay, so recall that the process we were given by Gil was just reactive sticky notes. And there was one sticky note that said add a faculty person and 2 sticky notes that said add a student. So that's the only reason I made it on here. And the first bullet under 3, I wrote that the bit about clarify the why and then ask if that's the most effective way to get to that why, which I think is largely reflecting what you're saying. For that reason, this question feels like it just very much needs a group discussion to understand.
No, I'm not saying that we don't need a group discussion, but it seems to me when you pick out in the parentheses where it says e.g. student, faculty.
We said, for example, those.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that that's already concluded and that's an outcome. It's been, so it's an outcome looking for a process to create it. Is the way I'm envisioning it. I don't have that much problem about having this, I don't have a problem with having a discussion about adding voices to figure out a way to add stakeholder voices, so that we can regularly engage with them. But it just seems to me that the cart here is before them.
Yeah, and I agree. There's lots of different ways to get voices, but I think this is the area in which Audrey and I, in our role from Saturday, are most moving the mirror up to the board, saying this is what we heard you say.
I understand that. I would just, if you take out the parentheses on this is student faculty.
So, other questions on this goal? Mine comes back to, what the lift would be, what the work would be done. Okay, and they are kind of different, buckets. So if we could just look at them and just have that. So the first is pulling together the norms and that, who do you envision or do we envision would do that?
I would say this, we get something again that we can assign. Maybe this is just-
I mean, this could be 1 or 2 board members doing it.
Creating a draft.
Yep.
What then is.
Yep, that's what I saw, but I just wanted to, yes, I mean, it could be 1 board member with a draft and then float it around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The second one is similar. Which is, because when I see define, right, that's draft, all of that is draft.
Yeah.
So that would be an individual or pair to come up with recommendations. Okay. And then the third one, really the operative word is discuss. So what I'm seeing, through this for the board work would be that 1, we would need, that we would have some drafting of various things, but moving forward, we would need in our agenda. Somewhat aligning with our goals, we would need a segment for governance. That we would use to. Have these discussions. So our agenda would have to include a governance section. And it's not every month or every meeting we would have it, but that would be a section to which we would use. And so we're gonna need to earmark board meeting time for those discussions.
Yeah, I would also add though to the discussion that the third bullet point of the first. First item cited here informs 2 and 3. And I think that, you know, it's not just a discussion, we're also. We need to commit to a process of research and analysis that informs the decisions that we're making across the board, across all the goals. And so I think that, I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, that's a research one, I guess it's.
I think the board has given us some really good feedback here and we're both taking a lot of notes and we're gonna reissue this with some of that feedback incorporated. It sounds like maybe what we also should have added is some suggested mechanics to each of these goal objectives. So there's a little bit left of, well, how would we do this? So we can certainly add suggested mechanics.
Excellent. I'm in support of the work that's here, and some of it is a carryover of things, and so, you know, when you talk about the committees, others have been, you know, themes of past boards, et cetera, that are in work yet accomplished, so, okay. That's 2 down. And we're on to the next. Topic, next goal. So that was the dynamic trio that had to adhere to Open Meetings Act, so we were kind of passing the ball between us. Never talked to each other. No, it was 1-to-1. So do you want to cover this or?
I'll do finance, so please.
Please do.
Okay. So our statement is that D200 effectively manages expansion, facilities management, effectively manages facilities expansion and ongoing equitable financial decision making. And then we have 7 objectives here. You'll see we dashboard a lot. So I assume that our dashboards that we'll talk about here would be a part of the bigger whole dashboard.
Correct.
Okay, so number 1, the facilities dashboard launched by one of 24 to allow the community a clear view of progress on project 2 and long-term facilities planning. Dashboard should include the project timeline and finances by area and meeting what the total commitment for the project is, how much is spent to date, and what the future commitment looks like. And then that timeline would be you know updated on a regular basis, so we can show you know the progression of the project. Number 2 is the track and field project.
So I'm just, you know, just
go through these and discuss them.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably easier just to kind of click them off rather than, you know, so. Because it isn't, you know, consistent through this, in terms of the who, right, or what the board's role is. You know, this is one where I would kind of probably follow Graham's word of mock-up, right? Because really it's just making sure that the needs are understood and then it's handed to the administration. And so I would say that's a And because this one is imminent timing, that one's a mock-up by a board member / committee. You know. Okay.
Okay, number two, which hopefully is moved very quickly, is the track and field projects will be completed on time, on budget, without injury. By November of 2023.
And the board's role there is the full board in their duty as monitor.
Yes.
Right?
Unless you want to start building the track.
So our job, that fits in,
Get the cover rules.
that falls under the monitor bucket.
Okay. Then number three, this one's a little more in depth, a little headier, which is a sustainability plan. To be finalized and get successfully incorporated into project 2 construction schedule. In order to do this, we think that we're going to have to hire an outside third-party expert, which would be the role of administration to do that. By next February of 2024, develop the overall plan, identify what needs to be part of project 2. All right, and then and that would also fall on administration, and then tasking the CFC with how to fund the components of project 2.
The sustainability components.
The project 2 components.
The sustainability components that are part, that would fit within the realm of project 2.
Right, so we created. With the help of an expert third party, we create the sustainability plan. We determine what of the, in that plan, what components within that plan are necessary for project 2 to complete alongside or with project 2. All right, and then how we're gonna fund it.
So it's an overall OPRF sustainability plan, of which project 2 is one piece of it.
Right. And you would integrate it, and in terms of like construction planning and scheduling and all of that, how does it fit into?
Yeah, I think
That
the hope is,
Exactly.
so yeah, I think the hope is that like we get that in front of time to be.
Any other questions about that one? Discussion.
Right. I guess just to add a little bit of clarity for what you just teed up right there, Mary Ann. It's really naming something that is an existing goal for us for project 2, that is part, and has been and will continue to be part of our ongoing conversations with Gilbane as far as pursuing the certification, as far as pursuing the geothermal work, as far the energy efficiencies that are going throughout the project and so on. So just a quick.
Number 4 is by May of 2024 to launch successful and relevant district financial dashboard. By March of 2024, the CFC will determine what's going to be on it. All right, who do we compare to, or our comparative districts or out there, and what the dashboard is going to look like. So that would be one of the charges that we as a board would give to the CFC. So that we could have a dashboard up and running by the end of the school year, a financial dashboard. Any questions?
No questions for about like any comment against you talk about dashboards and what they look like and who mocked them, who developed in order to have a kind of consistent keep what we do. We're gonna have that convergence of how this work comes together, what recommendations to the administration, so there's not confusion around they'll do this, they'll do that, and we're gonna have to make sure that we're pretty clear about what we want, what we want it to, what elements we want, and then who comes up with what that looks like, that fits the various requests.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback, and I would say that at the individual level, meaning like the finance piece, et cetera. The focus in my opinion should be what's in it,
Right,
right?
and define metrics, right?
Because we don't want to, we don't need three different artists here, we just need to say, it needs to say this, this, and this. And then the collective group can then work on, you know, what's the best way to communicate that.
Okay, the next one, number 5, is clear funding, a clear funding plan developed for the remaining Imagine facilities projects and the long-term maintenance. So, again, by the end of the school year in May of 2024, we would task this also to the CFC to identify who will be involved in developing funding for future facilities plans and the process that's going to be followed. So this is to have our, not only our long-term plan moving forward, but also understanding, you know, the funding options that we should be looking at and how we're going to do that and how that process will be followed in the long term. So, we got that, okay. Number 6, sustain District 200's equitable resource distribution using evidence-based funding model. The administration to document the process of the evidence-based funding model is used for resource decisions in compliance with board policy 712, which is the racial equity policy, by January of 2020. And we changed that a little bit because you had brought the issue of Jonathan about the racial equity impact assessment tool. And I think after looking at it, I think it goes a little bit beyond that. I mean, there has to be compliance. We should be looking at everything through, you know, the entire racial equity policy, and resources that are actually spelled out in that policy. So it just, you know, the tool is just one portion of it, one portion of the policy. So we want to make sure that we're in compliance with the entire policy.
I mean, I would like to see included in here somewhere, when we have a, you know, number 5, a clear funding plan for the remaining Imagine projects. It would be nice to see in here now a commitment to conducting these racial equity assessment the tools for the remaining Imagine projects.
I think that's, how do I say this? I think that's in there because we have a policy. All right, it is a board policy, all right, and we have to do that. All right, that's part of the administration's responsibility. We could spell it out, maybe overall, somehow saying that you know, as we move forward, any of these objectives and goals, all right, need to be in compliance with racial equity policy.
But what is our current process for, because what are best practices around what determines racial equity, it changes, and so what is our current process in checking in on what the best tool to get at racial equity assessment is?
Well, we have a office of racial equity.
No, I understand that.
So it is charged, my point is, it is charged to the administration.
I bring this up because this has been a hot topic, but,
Right.
you know, around, you know, looking at employing the REIT for Project 2. And I just think that we should have somewhere in here a commitment to to employing the very best tools that we know according to best practices in evaluating our
I get your point, and I agree with you. but I think it's more of an overarching issue. To basically everything that we do.
That's fine. I don't see any harm though in adding additional language that says that we're committed to an ongoing, again, monitoring.
Then I would do it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on Brent's court. I mean, because we said that equity is in everything we do. By doing that, these are meant to be our goals. We have our mission, we have our vision, and we have our values. And they are, and the framework of our strategic plan. So, in my opinion, our goals aren't a restatement of our mission, vision, and values. They're more, what is it that we're going to get done? And we're going to get it done under the guidance of the mission, vision, values. Otherwise, we're going to create I would agree with Fred's statement. There's many other policies, and we said, and we know equity is paramount, but there are other policies. What says which different things we need to reference, et cetera. I mean, we have mission, vision, value.
I think we do need to be careful about assuming equity is baked into our the structure and process of everything we do, and that it's not something we need to return to and check in on, keep tabs on. I think that there's merit to that. And I think just as having a clear funding plan is incumbent on the board, and we stated here, I think so is making sure that we are aware of changes and developments and how we understand best practices and what really understanding that we are doing things equitably.
And I think that's right in our goal summary statement, frankly, that because we say that we will effectively manage facilities expansion and ongoing equitable financial decision.
Yeah, but that's at the top of the page.
Right. So I mean, if you want to say that equity into each one of the objectives.
I don't see
specifically.
Well, I don't mean that specifically. I'm talking about when it comes to actually saying that there's a commitment to deploying these tools according to our ongoing, being a commitment to being aware of how these things have changed and how they are becoming more dynamic and more sophisticated as far as getting at what we want to get at. I want to be very careful that we're not making any assumptions on this. And yes, we have dedicated professionals, staff that this is what they do.
Right.
I just see that.
And it's our job to hold them accountable to do that.
Of course, right.
Right.
I just also feel like, back to my point of really making sure that we bake in a commitment to doing things according to best practices. And that's something that we monitor and come back to and make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to that. I just feel like that needs to inform.
So where do we get updates on best practices? How does that come to us?
I brought up the racial equity assessment tool because we spent a lot of time in discussions with community members around this last year, and I feel like I don't see any harm in putting verbiage into these goals that says we're committed to to paying attention to how these things change and what the best practices are and how we can best get at what the racial equity.
But how do we monitor best practices? How do we know that we are?
Well, we create that structure and process ourselves at the board level right now, and that's what we're talking about in these board goals. And that's why I keep coming back to, with the facilities and finance work that's been done in recent years, we've committed to this great process, evidence-based process. But I want to make sure that we maintain fidelity to that structure and process as we refine all of these strategic goals. And it's a very,
I'm not disagreeing. Okay, my point is that at this point in time, all right, where we're at in our racial equity policy was passed in 2018, 2019. I'm sorry, it's spring of 2019. All right. That it should be baked in as a process of everything that's done, all right, in the district. All right, and I think an overreaching statement, all right, rather than picking and choosing specifics, which specific objective you add it to is fine. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, it's something that we should be, it is a matter of our process. And mostly it's 99% administrative process. All right, because they're the ones that do it. They're the ones who ought to be telling us what the best practices are. They're the ones that ought to be keeping up to date, all right, with best practices. All right, that's why we've invested a lot of time and money and invested people into it. So I just.
We got a lot to go, and we're kind of digging deep on what is a critical issue, but it's about semantics and how we get framework for it. So.
I don't think it's semantics, I think it's about, are we actually applying equity lens to everything we do, right? It's one thing to put a statement up there and have it happen, but what evidence do we have that we are applying that lens to all that we do? So we can come back to it, but that's what I'm hearing from the conversation, right? So.
The board checking.
The checking item, because it's very easy to put this in place and then it happens, that's not the case, particularly when I'm there. So I can understand what he's asking, and I think it's worth, again, I know maybe through this, but I think it's worth thinking about that as a board, how we apply that lens and confirming what's happening.
We're not gonna finalize it.
Correct.
Like, that's maybe Jonathan, if you can, articulate a parenthetical or some additional language that we can all consider adding to that bullet point, then let's do that.
I thought I had it Saturday, but apparently not.
Maybe, I don't need to prolong this, so I agree with it, but I do have one question as we consider this, as you consider this moving forward. At times, as I listen to this conversation, I have heard the need to refine and make sure that we are effectively using whatever tools to use, right, to ensure equity throughout the organization, specific to facilities and finance. And other times I hear it throughout the organization. And so the question is it something specific to this board goal on this page that we're looking at right here? Or are you looking at something bigger and broader and beyond that? I've heard us get back and forth between both those things. And so I just add a little clarity on that as we keep planning. I don't mean I further now, but I think that clarity would help us.
Yeah, I know we spent a lot of time in this room with community members talking about this issue. And I think that anything we can do to make it very clear that we're committed to an ongoing process that is in tune with how best practices might change and inform our activities, and that is the place. And so in this case, I had like the READ assessment, the racial equity assessment tool, and I simply brought it up because if we're talking about these other things in the bullet points that we're already expected to do as board members, I see why we're talking about fiscal responsibility and pushing the bullet point.
Right, and we did, we added the racial equity policy.
I know, I see that, but that's, again, that's the board. I'm saying there's still not a commitment in there to that's outright, that says that in the same way we're committed to the process in place for project 2 and looking at really paying attention to developments, research, and comparative analyses. I just want there to be something about how what sort of heart that we're gathering around about real-time data that's informing this big topic that I really want to see us as an institution not miss the beat on. And I think we can do better. So that's
the last point, the more I've been thinking about this, it really ties in with the first one.
Yes.
So I'm not sure we need both. But it says project 2 delivered on time, on budget, without injury by 6/26. Which would And which would include requiring quarterly reviews beginning in March of 2024. So I think that can be really kind of incorporated into number one.
I like that.
What do you think?
One of them's a build and one of them's a monitor. So, I mean, you can put them together, but they're two.
So my concern is with this page is a structural concern, so maybe that goes to this question as well, right? That I don't actually have problems with the specifics on here, but by titling the whole section facilities and finance rather than just finance, I think it prioritizes facilities. If you look at the bullet points, it's 1, 2, much of 3, 5, and 7 are all facilities. I would say that 6 should be first, equitable resource distribution as the overarching finance goal, right? And then under that, you're going to have facilities, you'll have sustainability, you'll have personnel, whatever else, maintenance is a subset of facilities. Project 2 is a subset of facilities. So I just think if you organize it appropriately, it'll then be easier for us to see where we're putting our priorities. And make sure that we are paying as much attention to personnel as we are to facilities, for example. That's this troubles me as a framework. So. So, I don't actually have any changes on the specifics, although I agree with Jonathan. Something about, the equity tool, the EDF model use, the REAP tool, whatever tools they are, they need to be periodically reviewed and evaluated, even if that's like admin does it and gives us a report, but that the board commits to reviewing that. We don't have to necessarily go out and do the research ourselves, but that is something we look at periodically.
So again, as Graham said, we can come back and we can, refine it, but I did want to kind of provide feedback on a couple points. First of all, number 5 is, as I read it, has nothing to do with what the facilities are. Okay, number 5 is a finance. The word is funding plan. We went through this process, and so it doesn't matter. Equitable. Yeah,
that's all fine. It's just I just put it as a subcategory.
Sure, no, it is a facilities one. So I would just say that one. Number, and frankly, number 5 in my mind, it's on there because we started talking about what's going to happen, in the next couple of years. There's not going to be a lot done in that area, right? I mean, we have mountains to tackle here, and it kind of comes back to your other question is, in my opinion, the reason this one, this is a lot of continue, right? It's not starting, we're not starting stuff. This is the result of the work that's been done in the last number of years and really trying to bring some things home. And there's a lot of meat on the bones related to it. But yes, it can be restructured.
I mean, I understand that. I guess I would say that, I just feel like the board goal for finance should be this equitable resource distribution, right? And then, yes, there's a big chunk of facility stuff that is going to be the bulk of the work that we're, in the midst of right now. But I think it's important framework for us to orient that way.
All right. Let's keep going. I think we got enough to do a tweak.
All right, I won't slow us down, but I'm gonna share 2 cents. I also have felt it's kind of odd to be jamming together facilities and finance because they're both such sprawling issues. I perceive that is just a legacy of how the district's always done it. But I think we should at least entertain the idea of breaking these things apart. And then the last thing I would say is under item 7. Isn't the actual deadline August of 2026, just in the sense that I think that's when the damages kick in?
have a timeline, a certain timeline on it. But we'll go back, whatever the date is.
I mean, it's designed to open on August the 26th. We're supposed to get possession of it by 6/26, so we can move all our stuff in and get ready for the start of the school year, so.
Okay, that being the case, then let's keep it at 6/26.
Fair
I heard it changed it. Okay. I would say there is no historical, why we have them together is there's no magic answer. I mean, when we were kind of framing it up, we kind of put it together. There's merit to it, breaking them up into two distinct focuses.
Sure.
And so that's easy.
Mary Ann, would that kind of.
Yeah, that would also-
Yeah, it seems like
Because then finance then would have multiple categories of, facilities would be one of them. Then going to the facilities, docs, all those specifics. Sorry, I'm sorry, I've been revising papers with my students, so I think I'm in outline mode. So,
next. You may.
For school environment, our summary statement was community sees OPRF as a safe, welcoming and equitable environment. And we really, we gathered all of the stickies and ideas into two buckets. Came up with two objectives, one around mental health and one around school safety. Objective one, D200 mental health practices for students and staff are adopted as a template in the state, and we are a recognized as a leader. The Boone employee coaching, that's already been implemented, it's underway. We thought that this issue rose to the level of requiring an ad hoc superintendent's committee on mental health, and that we create that as soon as possible. And that committee would be, there would be roles for multiple board members on that committee, administration as well. And that the role of that committee would be to assess the current state of all that we are doing around mental health. All of our efforts over the last couple of years, trying to do an inventory of external expertise, some of which we're harnessing, maybe some of which we're not, we could harness more effectively. Trying to assessment of available external expertise, and from that inventory, develop recommendations for how to most effectively bolster our current efforts around mental health. We thought that they would be the most effective way to kind of elevate this issue and provide some jet fuel around both the analysis and ultimately implementing those recommendations. Question.
So in discussion with Dr. Johnson, there's already committee, correct?
We have internal committees and kind of process flows. I mean, it's a big top priority for us. So I think it's an existing top priority for us in the school. And we have a variety of processes in place for this. And so this goes back a little bit to my comment earlier about kind of assessing this whole package and seeing what's here as far as committees are concerned and how they kind of would get managed over time and what the capacity is of our admin team to move forward with that. I just would like to open the door to our team to spend more time thinking about this a little bit, but figure out exactly what this ad hoc committee might be and how that integrates with the existing processes that we have in the school. Does that make sense? I don't want to just throw everything out and start a process from scratch. I want to think about that in an integrated way. That's all. And that absolutely applies, I won't make a comment again, but for the next, the next objective listed here as well.
And this one clearly, from a board perspective, in my simplistic of start, stop, continue, old, new, this is a new. This has not been in our prior board goals, so this is kind of based on the collective input of and climate, this is putting it on a pedestal. This whole topic.
I have a question about the objective, in terms of adopting at Central Coast State. I guess in terms of, what was there behind that, because there's probably additional work that needs to be done to try to get to that point, so just sort of understanding, I guess, how important or the piece is about having it. I understand about the recognition as being perhaps it's important, but just curious about it.
I suspect we picked that up on the sticky note. I think the intention. I think the intention is that we are, we would speak the.
Okay,
It was meant to be a visionary statement, right? It was meant to be a visionary statement to say, we really put energy and effort and.
I totally get it. I think it's literally we have a goal, then how do you get it done?
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question.
So
leaders in this day.
Right. But then just a recognition for the work, right?
you can use a little polish. Okay.
Are these dates feasible, Craig? I think that was my question.
Yeah, you and I talked about that as well, but there, some other areas. So Boone, absolutely. So box check in there. And again, I don't know that I have a concrete answer to all of those until I have these other internal conversations, specifically related to the committee and so on and so forth. I just, these are board goals, they should be board goals, that's what they are, and then we have to talk to the team about how we could operationalize these things, and that's gonna take more than I can offer at this moment.
Yeah.
But I thank you for the question, because I think it realizes the practical application of these goals.
I almost wonder whether right now we should, things that are not final, we should like just put brackets around those dates until Greg comes.
Yeah, all these dates are right now.
Right.
They're stabs and I can say they're stabs because and they're used to indicate priority, right?
The reason I say it's, eventually the finance ones are finalized and that first food one is finalized, so it's great, like some of them we know the dates. And then a bunch of the others, if we can delineate which ones are set and which ones are still under discussion date wise, I think that's why I was suggesting just put brackets around the ones that are not yet firm.
Yeah, I think that the top level message is.
Yeah.
We as a board consider this topic so important that we would devote, more time and personnel to it as part of the committee, if that's something that works for the administration. And we see such urgency that we would suggest, really accelerate the timeline for assessment, for making recommendations, implementation of those recommendations. Right? And I know you agree with all that. That's really just the.
And I'll even explore in a conversation I had earlier today about, these came in at different times today, or, the third bullet. Assessment of current state of existing programs, so on and so forth, by the November 23rd. In our calendar of reports, we already had November as a date to give this presentation, so there's a little bit of a coincidence there on that day.
It's this team.
So. But it's the process around it all, so there is synergy here already.
Okay.
It's not fun.
All right.
Objective 2 goes to school safety, and I'm sure this also needs to be wordsmith, but what we have is enhanced safety focus leads to dramatically increased safety perception. And we had a long conversation about separating those two. It's not just the community's perception of whether or not OPRF is safe, or students' perception. Actual school safety is the first part of it, and again, we thought that perhaps an ad hoc committee devoted to systematizing how we assess risk and systematizing how we continually track best practices and make sure that we're following them here. That we have a systematized way of bringing in outside risk assessment group or person all those kinds of things. I think that if we have not done those kinds of things in the past, we can do now, and this is a way, again, it's sort of elevating it and making sure it happens as soon as possible. And then creating an ongoing process for maintaining that kind of plan. Questions?
I think it probably, when I first read your sentence there, I think the grammar like needs tweaking a little bit because it sounds like we're gonna pay attention to safety and our goal is to increase the safety perception. I think your goal, as you're stating it, is we're gonna pay attention to safety and will lead to increased safety and safety perception. So that's, I would just make them.
I think
Yeah.
we're. What the result is. That we're looking for is. That people, whether it's students or faculty and staff, feel safe and comfortable in the building.
But we also want them to be safer,
Right.
right? So that's why you just want both, right? You want both.
And I think, yeah, and I think that there's also particularly on the point from a communication, plan standpoint, it's actually connected to the other goal, because perceptions can be very difficult to shift. I hear perceptions from parents all the time that are not what I hear from students. And so there can definitely be a disconnect, there, so I think there's some opportunities around how we think about broad communication and how that might help. And not to say in general, and you brought this up, it'd be helpful as you go through these, to step away and just understand what kinds of things you and your team already have in the queue and already have underway. And what that is there this parallels with what's here, there's going to be, from my view, process already new, right? So it'd be helpful to understand what you and the team are already doing, so that we can be able to say, how might we leverage that, versus create something new.
Yeah, in some ways, what I kind of would like to see along those lines then is as we kind of eventually take hold of some of these, maybe flip the first two bullets and then the second one and the parallel bullets in the first one, meaning let's do that kind of needs assessment first. Let's do the taking stock first and then figure out what type of committee or process we want.
Like what exists and what might be to enhance, what might be for this purpose of the grant.
Yeah, data first, right?
Yeah, that one's, but that's great input. So in terms of just sequence, would you see the same on the first one or not?
Well, I guess it wouldn't, the bullet numbers are different, so it would be the second and third bullets.
But would you see the same? Because, I mean, that one's a lot less, which, well, yeah,
I still would believe that it would apply to the first one.
that's fine. It's good input.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's.
Just don't cut off with much from the time we get him.
Your experience depends on what's, so then that's great insight. Thank you. Any others on that? So this one, yes, Greg.
I think the only thing sorry.
No, please go.
Yeah, just, let's, my sense is that the parents have a set of concerns. And the students often have a different set of concerns, and I know you haven't heard about that. But a lot of the student concerns that I hear are about small pervasive things. So I just wanna, I just wanna be sure that when you're doing the safety related elements, that you are looking at that kind of thing as well as the bigger matters.
Okay, I know exactly, I think we're talking about.
I think part of our intention on an ad hoc committee would be to include student voice.
Yeah. It was more like the types of things that get lumped under safety. Sometimes people blaming and there's something. But yeah.
Okay.
So can I just say something?
Yes, please.
I'll try to be quick. First of all, item 1, mental health practices for students and staff adopted a template for state. What does that mean, template for state?
We talked about that. That was visionary. That needs to be made a little more tangible.
We're going to change that to something like recognized as a leader across the state.
Yeah.
Okay. So I may be an outlier on this, but a few months back when the topic of mental health came up and we all said we were super interested in student mental health and so forth. I sort of thought of that more holistically in the category of student wellness. this has landed very specifically on mental health. And then this, what feels again, as mentioned, is about how the community views safety in the school. I would have thought this would have been more about the student experience, and everything about student wellness, physical health, mental health, this sense of belonging, safety, caring, feeling that they have a trusted adult they can talk to inside this building. Because we care also not just about their time here on property, but also their time off site. So I know this is just a first pass. The team may or may not take any advice and use it in the next version, but I would have thought there was more of an opportunity to make this more holistic about student wellness rather than the strictly student school environment. And one of my sticky notes never made it into this, which is fine. But me, Tim, and Jonathan being on the campaign trail most recently, that amounted to numerous conversations with our constituents that are part of Moms That Demand Action. Who coincidentally, purely coincidentally, showed up here tonight, but then disappeared before this exciting topic came up. So I was really interested in at least having our board discuss what they're asking for.
I am as well, Graham, that's a great observation. My expectation is that would be part of objective 2.
Okay.
And an important one.
Okay, I appreciate that. So my sticky note is implied. Yes.
Yeah, although I think mental health and safety, right, are like two crisis points. But having the overarching thing, student wellness, makes sense, right? So that, I mean, that might just be something to add to the goal summary statement and say, like, and then here are 2 areas that we know we're going to be working on specifically because they are crisis points at the moment. Does that make sense? And then 2 years from now, another board may be working on different aspects. Right? So
thank you. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Good discussion, and there's some refinement to be done. And we're gonna keep moving.
which one do you want? You're gonna take that. Okay. Very student achievement. So we broke this down currently, the things that we're already doing. Maximize the student potential, closing the opportunity gap, establish metrics. This is ongoing. Progress will be reported in the state of district report for each December. The second one that also is currently going, provide access to a wide array of opportunities, including for secondary pathways. Progress will be again reported in that same report. We have a note that we don't currently have a formal practice for tracking practitioners, so might be something to revisit going forward. Additional, so these two, I think we have some consensus in these. Explore alternative learning approaches. So this is, and Greg, I think I added that last sentence there after what I sent you, so you may not have seen it. That the idea is sort of an innovations and explorations. This is mostly just to keep us from getting stuck in a rut of this is how we've always done it, right? So I think it would be good to have annually, and I don't have a sense of how often this would need to be, but just a sense you're going to these superintendent conferences, you're considering new ideas and new approaches and so on, and I think it'd be good for the board to hear that, right? And there's a ton of things that could potentially fall into that. So I didn't, I put some possibilities here, but none of this is anything that would have to be pressed. Does that make sense?
I understand that.
Okay. And then okay, I'll go to the next one and then maybe we can discuss this too. Enable students to take full advantage of counseling, tutoring, and resources as evidenced by measured increase in students across demographic categories and advantage. So this we did put a due date on that's asking for a report that's an update on progress in these areas, including baseline measures. So I think you said end of the school year, so I think I said maybe June makes more sense, or July. I mean, that's fine. So does anyone have questions about any of those 4?
I do. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
Well, 4, I was, because you just covered the second two, the additional.
Right, so the currently are the things we're already doing, so if you have questions about those, then I just assume. Any questions? Or
No, I'm focusing on, so the additional, just so that, is the way you just described it, because, you know, some of these things, when I read the specifics of classroom size, changing in schedule, that's, you know, those are things that I can say I don't have consensus on. I don't.
No, I don't, yeah.
So if the issue, that's the way I was kind of initially hearing it. If the issue is to have, I'm just trying to understand, as a board goal, our board goal is to, because we have 1 employee, right? So we're saying we want our 1 employee to be reporting to us on current trends or current.
What the future, right, like what is.
Exploratory.
What's the superintendent thinking, we may be changing about how we do things, right, so. Just so that we're kind of kept in the loop on that, I think does that make sense? I think that's kind of where this has kind of evolved to after much discussion, but
You're thinking that this would be like an annual.
something like that, yeah, just
Innovations report?
something, you know, like what is, because we're not all going to be keeping up on what's happening in high school, right, and like best practices and like. I mean, for example, California is going to, I think, make it a statewide requirement at a later step. So, you know, I don't know if that's gonna happen in Illinois, but that's the sort of thing that the superintendent would be paying attention to. And then we might not be paying attention.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, whether it's recording or even like an updated session, like, at my board meeting next week from my organization, and one thing we do on a couple of times a year is for education and training topics. On things that are that we're interested in, that we're working on, that it gives a view of what's going on. But keep them updated and feasible around what, you know, kind of what we might be pursuing. So I don't know where there's like, you know, any other kind of reporting or things that your team does, I'm sure to do. That
Yeah, so pulling together information from various professional learning experiences and say, you know, this is kind of the pulse of the academic year. You know, this is what kind of is out there and what we've experienced. It's easy to see the merit in that. It's easy to see the merit in somebody organizing that. Whether or not we take it to the board is a completely separate step. But doing that internally is of value. But again, I'm gonna go back to a previous answer I said, just for the sake of where we are in this conversation. I want to spend some time thinking about this one. It's an interesting idea. It's probably of everything that we have on here, the most out of the box in the sense of not really done, right? You know, and so I want to spend some time thinking about how we operationalize it, as I said before about the others. But if we think about it from a professional learning report, I think that helps me kind of set the arrow. I also want to just put back on some of the currently things we might refine some of those dates, especially the post-secondary pathway stuff. We've done that report in the spring, and I think I might have communicated that December one earlier, but that's true of all these things. So.
Well, so one thing I'll add to that, so we discussed several things around this topic and this idea of exploration and innovations, and how can we better create a system where we can that will enable us to be more nimble when we need to be when the time comes to abduct the best way to pivot and change in things such as actually SAT isn't going to be anything. I know that people better hear that, but several of our premier institutions of higher learning saying it doesn't really tell us anything, so they're not requiring it anymore. So eventually we're going to have to pivot here and how we prepare ourselves. There should be a structured process to exploring and innovative thinking around these things that we can see now on the horizon that will be here. So,
and another example, with the recent Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, UIC has been had to change a whole mess of processes, right? And so we've been getting, the faculty have been getting kind of regular reports from the administration to the general public saying, here's this, at this point, we're expecting this to happen. At this point, this is happening. These are what we've done so far. These are things under discussion. That, right? Just because there's big changes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's certainly just doing counterfactuals, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, imagine if we were able to have that sort of process before COVID, you know, doing these counterfactuals around, you know. It's just, there's a lot to learn from that, and things that we can do differently.
And I'll just hit the next two, we don't necessarily need
Can
to.
I just,
Oh, sorry.
so that was, so is that, that was a different spin on how this evolved, this, the one we were just talking about, but then, so that what I'm hearing is, Audrey, your words were pretty good in terms of kind of framing what this would look like. I've had prior desire as a board to have kind of at some point during the course of our cycle to have legislative review, right? Which is a more of the legal trend, but it's, you know, like you've said, so it might fit in this, and I've talked to you about it, Greg, because, you know, there are laws and there are laws and there are movements. So I just would add that to that. That one might fit more in governance, but you know, some aspects of it. The second one is a monitor, as I see it, correct? This is
The full advantage of counseling tutoring resources, it's monitored, but also I guess I feel like I don't have clarity on this as a board member right now, especially the demographic breakdown of knowing who takes advantage of these resources. And, you know, I mean, like this friend has brought up, like, you know, we added the tutoring center hours, how, you know, how are those being utilized? Should we maybe think about having them earlier or later? I mean, really just keeping us up to date on what you're thinking. If that makes sense.
There needs, in order for us to really move on this, I'm looking at this language here right now too. Counseling and tutoring are kind of in different camps, and then resources is potentially the entire school.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we make what exactly do we want the support to be? If we're talking about support services or something along those lines, that helps us target that a little bit. And again, we don't have to flesh that out and determine that right now, but we need to play with that a little bit to help us, our team, have the direction we need to produce something.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then the last two, I just want to explain them, and then these can potentially be tabled. So the reliable metrics for detracting and pandemic quality. So we are already obviously we have a detracting report that's scheduled and in the works. When I talk about things like indirect effects, I mean things like I just read a report that was talking about the increased use of ChatGPT and surveys among students who say that many of them feel like they were sort of abandoned for a couple of years and they had to learn how to teach themselves. And so they started using AI ChatGPT then, and so part of it is like like it's not an obvious effect of the pandemic, but it's a sort of this indirect side effect. And I don't know whether there are going to be tracking indirect effects. There clearly are pandemic direct effects, and so again, this is maybe just more something to raise for you to have in the back of your mind rather than a board goal as such, but I just wanted to raise it. And then make sure faculty and staff have the resources they need. This is, I don't know, I guess I feel like I don't know where we are in terms of whether we collect anonymous feedback, whether there are mechanisms for hearing from people who don't, like things that they wouldn't say to their bosses because their jobs are on the line, right? Kind of thing, right? So I just don't know what's already in place. So that's why I put those two. And I have thoughts if anyone else wants to throw anything in.
Yeah, I have a couple comments and a question, maybe. I agree with what Greg was saying in terms of the taking advantage of the counseling to resources. And I think that has to be studied. Tutoring is just one of the support systems.
Yeah, I actually support services makes sense. I think
So all of that's got to be there. On the first one, in the parentheses, spelling out start time and class sizes seems again to me a conclusion, looking for a process to justify it. So I think that if that's something that falls into alternative learning approaches, it should come from the bottom up rather than the top down. If it's something you want explored, then it should go to the administration for them to specifically explore it. But I don't think it should be spelled out, in a board goal.
Can I just ask Greg, do you want me to, I'm happy to take this out, like, I don't know whether it's helpful to have potential examples, or if Brent says, like, if that's like over determining it, then tweet it, like, mess with it. So if it's better to, if you think it's better to take it out,
I mean, I understand where this lies right now,
yeah.
so I think when we eventually determine the goal.
We don't,
it's
we
probably
don't
won't
need
be
that
here.
stuff.
Yeah.
But, like,
But the other comment and question, I should have put it on a sticky note, but it actually didn't come to me on Saturday. But is future curriculum changes beyond the change of freshman curriculum of evaluation, or where we stand with evaluation of sophomore, junior, senior curriculum or honor curriculum, transitions curriculum, all of our other curriculums that are out there. And because my understanding of the freshman curriculum really was going to be a wide base first step, but a first step. Because that alone is not going to create our equitable outcomes.
where would you, I think that's great, I can't think where.
I don't know if it fits into any.
Yeah, that's it.
I guess, you know what, we can talk about. Frankly, it belongs in the currentently. Okay, so there's a spotlight that needs to be shone on some things there, if that's what the board is interested in learning more about, so.
So future curriculum, sorry. Yes,
So, just Marion, you're kind of last on the to discuss. I really don't see those as board goals. Okay, I mean, I think.
Yeah.
And if they are, they got a long way to go to kind of get to what we're trying to do here. So.
Yep. I just wanted to raise the issues. You're gone. You have to copy it now.
We're all good to move on to technology.
Yes.
Okay. OPRF empowers their learning community to ethically, responsibly, and skillfully use technologies, AI, social media, technological tools, distance learning platforms as evidenced by. So currently, we have hardware and wireless access provided to students as needed. Review as needed. We have up to date. Should I stop with any of these?
Yeah, I guess just what's the board goal, role in that? I'm just,
Well,
what are we gonna do?
we're just kind of going over what we acknowledge that is currently happening here, and then what we see as additional things from a board perspective to.
But I think I could say, like, for that first one, I think Greg gives that study over report at some point.
Right.
So that's already in the schedule somewhere that you. Is there, is that in the schedule somewhere that?
We don't have a regular scheduled board report on technological hardware.
Okay. No one? I don't know, I think it's, yeah. Maybe it's just something that we've accomplished and we don't think about it anymore, it's never gonna fall off the radar.
It is an ongoing part of what we update and focus on for sure.
Yeah.
Within audit this year, we shared that with the board as well.
Yeah, it's here, going over what.
It was unexpected. It was unexpected.
Yeah, it was, and it also just gets to, you know, let's say the student that needs, that doesn't have internet at home, are they given a hotspot? And, you know, we understand that does happen, but I think it's important just to say that this is happening, acknowledge that, there's these. That's why it's here, because we discussed this
And it might be worth having some sort of technical board, just because in 4 years, you may have 7 board members who don't have that information, right? So it might be. Every 4 years, do a little summary of where we are on 10%.
We have up-to-date familiarity with evolving distance learning platforms. And again, it's in place and review is needed. Additional, a shared protocol for AI usage that is continually reviewed as the current situation is very much in flux. Until standards are determined by cultural consensus, including university academic standards, and then do ASAP. This is something that will be for the foreseeable future a very real time monitoring. Yeah.
I'm sorry to jump in, but you know, we've seen some other goals and I don't think it's hadn't planned to talk about the end of it on this, but where is there's a template in one of these goals that kind of provides a format for this, and it's the school environment goal. So we had the conversations about taking current stock of what's going on, doing a committee and develop recommendations. I'd like to see a process to find like here that models that. Because when I hear protocol ASAP, if I think about kind of what schools can do, I see bad protocols ASAP. And I see a process defined over time as developing a good, something solid. So we talked about this on Saturday, what I shared, we talked about is that there is a need for urgency there, for sure. But I like the template, so some other goals that helps inform our process.
Yeah, and I think getting back to the initial statement of be committed to empowering the learning community to ethically, responsibly, and skillfully use technology. Right now, AI is very much a pejorative, and it's viewed very negatively. There's a lot of potential for AI to be done for good, for ChatGPT to be used in as a useful arrow in our quiver of learning. So I think just really thinking about these things in an ongoing, informed, real time,
I think the only thing that made me put ASAP on here is because it's a little bit crisis. That's like when you say assess, I'm like, can't be a fast assessment, just because, I got an assignment yesterday, the first one I see it's clearly ChatGPT that's done, and I have no guidance from my department on how to stand, right? So I'm gonna make my own decisions. There's no guidance from the university. And it's just, I think some consistency across OPRF would be helpful.
I don't agree. Don't disagree.
Don't disagree.
It would be good.
I mean, in our organization, so are there any ongoing discussions or forums or things that are happening that?
Dr. Fiorenta is more plugged into that than I am, but she's not her head pretty considerably over there, so the answer is that's probably just today. I got something emailed to me from Ed Week that defined a process for schools. We should consider this for tackling AI. So there is conversation about this in the literature, but I do really want to stress the urgency is there, no doubt about it. But racing to something, a defined process that should be implemented. So it won't get implemented, it will get boring, and then there's the whole process. So. So I appreciate it. Focus on process.
Working towards a set of shared protocols for empowering agency through the use of social media. And is appropriate towards administrative staff, faculty, students, and the rest of our learning community. Say do initial plan by the end of the school year.
And this was just, the empowering agency piece is just because there's clearly a bunch of negatives. There are also potentially a lot of positives, and so it's just a part of our role now. And we want to everyone here to have the tools to use it well.
Just a comment, I was anticipating that that would be part of the activity around mental health. part of the assessment and then, however that.
So there's
That goes, whether it's committee or the administration is doing it, that student use of social media, peer impact. And whether it's social media use, so that's that would be mental health discussion.
That's clearly a component of the mental health discussion, but for another example, it's a big part of the, our students have business incubator programs as well, right? And social media is a huge piece of business, right? So there's, like, it's not only mental health, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about, working towards a shared protocol that is oriented around looking at social media as an agent of building things and sharing things instead of consuming things. And so, the conversation around mental health obviously is very much at a positive than consuming and spectrum, but I think working towards a shared protocol and looking at and working towards using social media, leveraging social media as a tool for empowering agency, and doing so having a shared understanding framework across the board that looks at it as a tool for good, potential good that everyone can build and communicate
And creating community, right? Because even in the mental health realm, right, you look at the, within the LGBTQ community, social media has been huge in ways to, letting young people find community, and they may not be in a supportive environment, right? So, there's a whole set of things there. I guess what we're trying to get at here is that the way people handle this right now tends to be very fragmented, right? It's like a piece of it gets addressed here and a piece of it gets addressed there, and a student could go through 4 years here and never get like a set of tools for managing social media. And so I'd like to see them get a set of tools. How do you think about it? How do you approach it? The same way that we do that for sexual consent, the same way we do that for, we have a whole bunch of. So. Does that make sense to people?
I just have a question, really, is it in response to that?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure I know the answer, but I think this is to both the AI issue and also sort of the empowering use of social media. Are these classroom instruction questions? And if they are, does the board have any role there at all? I mean, I think you could make an argument that both of them really just fall under the category of these are things that happen inside the classroom. They are up to the faculty and the administration. They don't rise to policy level, and the board doesn't really have any role. And I'm not arguing that. I'm just
Yeah, I can see that argument, and I guess I would say, I guess the board's policy responsibility is to be sure that there is no lack in a major area. Does that make sense? Like if we're sort of in charge of the school fulfilling its mission. And so we don't have to make any decisions about the specifics of any of these subcategories, right? But like if the school is neglecting athletics entirely, I feel like that would be a board problem, right? That we would have to address why is that happening. Right. So
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, and there is one word in here that we actually meant to strike, which was appropriate. So that is not. That is. Yeah. Because I think when you include language like that, it does tend to appear to drift into the moral enforcement thing.
Yeah, I think we don't want to tell them how to instruct about social media, but I think we do want there to be some instruction around social media. Does that make sense? I mean, the rest of the board may disagree.
I guess
Yeah, so.
I'm coming back to, what's the right role of the board? So we create policy. So, we can pick this goal, right? So is there policy that's needed? We engage the community, in this case, we monitor. And it could be a monitor issue of, do we have the right things in these areas. If anything, it's monitored, but the minute we're starting to dictate, you know, this is what it is, we are, in my mind, getting into the role of the administration and
Yes,
staff.
yeah, so thanks, Tom. I think that the monitor piece is relevant here, but the question then becomes, you know, it helps to refine the question. What are you currently doing around this? When can you and how can you present that to us? And what recommendations do you have based off of what your current practices are? That is a pretty standard board report format that we use for a variety of things, including curriculum, right? Including summer school, we've done that, or, you know, a host of other things that we brought to the board. So I think it kind of fits within that concept.
Okay. So.
That last one, do you just ditch it? Okay, we're ditching the last. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Although if anyone wants to learn more about those tools, I'd love to talk to you.
Oh, great. Okay, so, we we create. Hi, Bob. Is that really Bob or is that chat? GT? Yeah,
How long do you think you're gonna keep going?
we're getting done. This is the wrap up, Bob.
You don't have anything to start doing until 2, right? We're just getting warmed up.
Here's what we've done and what we need to do, okay? The 18th. First thing, you've got some refinement to it, but you know, the structure is there and we just need to keep in mind the, you know, who's gonna do it in terms of the who being board. And does it fit, you know, how does it fit within those board responsibilities? But I think you're off and running. So this group here has to divide goal 3 into goal, and finance and facilities will be separated. There's some tweaks to it, but you know, the content is there and such like that, so that one's. Okay. Goal in school environment, there's some good insight and, you know, reflection, but it's there, you know, Graham's point, wellness, and you know, we need to just take a look at it. The content is there, it's the framework is there. We got it. This group,
I think we did the edits, and I think I'm planning to refrain using what's on the school environment thing with assessment of current state, blah, blah, blah.
but it needs, but we gotta get down to the point of, it's a goal that's smart, that says, this is what we're gonna do in this year as a board. So, you know, aspirational, all kinds of visionary stuff is good, but what are we gonna get done? Okay? So, but when can we have, and then we need to get these, I mean, you have it, but then we need to give it to Dr. Johnson, who can then, you know, check our dates and such like that. So today is the 21st. The days are shorter than they are long.
I can do my edits.
Can we turn this in a week?
Yeah.
Okay, so by next Friday, we turn them, which is October the. Yeah.
The time we.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk about this.
Yes. You can still come on?
Maybe.
I mean, what's it, I don't know. I'm on a plane at 7 in the morning, so I'm not doing anything.
Will this come up in October 12th? We'll have another session on this.
October 12th is our next get together, which is the committee of the whole. And at that point, our goal is to have this thing in kind of approvable form, where we're all saying this is it, we're good with it. Okay. You know, we'll still have to ping, you still have some editorialization on that, but we need to do, you'll get it enough time to look at it, so.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Are there committee or liaison responsibilities that we have to cover between now and October 12th?
There's the one I mentioned, but there are, I think we're covered on. Other than that, I don't know of any outstanding ones.
Yeah, I
that
thought-
are by that policy. We covered CCD, we've covered community council. We've covered, we need to cover, I keep saying that, covered scholarship foundation, and I don't.
Scholarship and boosters were the two that I had on my list that were not done. Graham jumped in on the boosters.
I'm gonna check
We do
on
not
them.
have a member for scholarship.
I'm gonna do take scholarship.
Done.
Okay.
Okay, hey, that's good. At least we've got the chairs covered. And Graham, you did a boosters for the, to save us for that one time. We can talk about keeping that.
Happy to do that.
Done. Okay. So good. So
Well, we still need to discuss when we get to this.
absolutely. What are you doing there and why and what, all that. That's the more valuable piece that we need to discuss. So yeah, when we get to this, because part of when we have our goals, we're gonna have to assign the who, like, not just board, but it's gonna be Graham, it's gonna be Tom, it's gonna be that, so. Let's get the drafts to Lisa by a week from today, okay? Pardon, the 28th of September. And then, Lisa, if you can then just, do that and send them out as a group to the board. Then we can look at them collectively, in preparation for our committee of the whole meeting. Okay, does that mean? Good. And we can, that doesn't prevent thinking of things, we can start putting names to who's doing what to get some of this stuff going. That's what my head will be doing, who doing what, okay? With that said, thank you very much for the continued discussion on this, and I think we're
Very good work.
we're getting there, okay? But let's agenda. Our last item was informational. Any questions on the informational report? Okay, seeing none, then we have our district, community, and state reports. And actually, Graham, from a practice standpoint, what we've done, and this needs to be memorialized, is two things. One is that if there's a written report, it is sent and it is attached and it's available, so you'll notice there is a report for AGUP. Okay, of the most recent IGOV meeting. And then we've provided the opportunity to go around the room to talk to anything that they've done in these various committees. This is, so we're gonna just click through them real quickly and be done. Correct, Superintendent Student Advisory Committee.
No, that's one. The last conversation we had with him was about, well, no, it was you and Fred. There was some conversation about student engagement with the board. And that is a board goal right now, or a potential board goal. So no update besides that.
IGOV, read the notes.
So I read the notes, but to clarify the point about the childcare reimbursement.
Yes.
My recollection is that it went to the state last time with, all the school boards, and it was voted down, so I think right now we currently cannot reimburse.
Yeah.
So
that, but the others, like the library, aren't in that boat, and they're hoping that if they get leverage, that, they can.
I'm sort of bewildered because I thought we approved that already when I was there, but that's fine.
Okay. CFC, no meeting, no updates.
But we do have a meeting coming up in October.
Yes.
17.
And I think as I shared, I'll be traveling that day, So unfortunately, you'll have to deal with that one. So. Right.
Okay. Number 17.
I look forward to your report.
That's great.
You need a week.
You have to be voted on unanimously.
CCB, we had an excellent first meeting led by Linda Parker's high energy brainstorming session. That was a really good kickoff meeting. Gathered a lot of ideas from all the board or all the CCB members for topics that we want to dive deeper into throughout the rest of the year. We'll have a prep meeting with the team next week, and I'm looking forward to a really good year with that group.
Apple.
So I went to the first meeting, and Audrey's taking, so that's that next go. But for the first one, I think the main thing I would highlight is just something to be aware of is that, you know, when Apple was formed 30 years ago, there were like 500 parents, Black parents who came to form that and to work for a whole set of things around equity. And there were about 20 people at the meeting this time, which is actually quite a bit more than we were at meetings most of last year. And I think that, and I know this is already kind of on your to-do list and communications to reach out. But I wonder whether some of the drop in parent participation is in part because things have improved, right? Like there are things that were major crises before, we now have the detracting initiative, et cetera, so on. And so that's a question I have for the parents. So I'll just put that out there. And then Audrey, what are you gonna add anything?
No, I'm gonna connect with the leadership and get ready for the meeting they have coming up in October. So.
Sustainability.
No updates, I think, since a month ago when we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No updates. Visits. Facilities.
we haven't had one since the early
Okay.
August meeting.
Community council.
So we met on the 12th, I believe, of September. And the topic actually was the 150th anniversary. So it was a lot of good discussion, a lot of passion about the exhibit is opening at the Oak Park History Museum. And a few questions that actually meeting early. It was actually a pretty provoking meeting, but we got a lot of energy around what we're going to celebrate and what's coming. There are a few questions that came up about something like the track, a little bit of project too, but not anything major. I mean, Greg, anything you read?
No.
Boosters.
So now I know. It's the round the horn opportunity and I owed everyone a written report after. I think joining the board in the late, in the early summer and not doing much of these.
Yeah.
Now we're doing a bunch of these. Okay. I think I might have reported this out previously, but it was their first meeting of the year. They asked me for a report on what the board has been doing and I gave them some of the key highlights such as finally improving project 2. Renewing our superintendent's contract and so forth. They basically were planning their fundraisers for the year. I also conveyed our deep appreciation for the wonderful mural that we get to enjoy now on the west side of the building. And then a lot of their leadership happens to be a lot of parents of seniors. So I think they're going to be looking for some parents of underclass people to help fill some of their key roles as they go forward. But it was a very enjoyable meeting and there was a lot of administration firepower at that meeting. And Wilson, your activities, leadership, so administration is well represented, doing a good job, I think, supporting the boosters.
I'll just add, so Fiona, who was president of the Bump Boosters, was at that first Apple meeting and reported out to them and encouraged them to get involved, which was great. And then she and I had a conversation. We ended up having a separate meeting about fundraising and some different approaches, running a Kickstarter, et cetera, so on. So that's sort of an ongoing conversation I'm having with the boosters, side conversation. So.
Applause.
So that's a question I had. Did somebody else pick up applause?
I would have to look, I thought you were applause.
Okay, and I did not go with it, so I can keep it. But that relates to another committee question, which is that early childhood, I said I would be on, but it turns out that their meetings are conflicting with my teaching schedule. So Jonathan, you're available, I can come late, but it's just I would be arriving late every time. So, sorry.
I will ask them a question about their bylaws. I think it's supposed to be 3 members from each entity at every meeting, if I'm not mistaken, to constitute a quorum.
I don't believe.
3.
No, when they-
Including me? Well, let's double check that. I think you can have a quorum of that whole committee without having full representation from each board, which would be 2, 2, 3. So let's double check.
Let's check the bylaws.
Okay, I was thinking the tri-board, which is.
Yeah, no, this is.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Planning on dates with that, so that'll be in the end of the week notes, so you guys can see what dates they're planning to hold the tri-board.
November usually, right?
That's 2 dates in November and 1 in December.
All right, and last, alumni association.
Alumni Association is heavy into reunion season. And this week is homecoming. One of the things the Alumni Association does is give building tours to alumni on Saturday mornings in the fall. So this weekend will be a big one because it's homecoming, several different classes coming back. And having their reunions this weekend, so we'll have several different tours going on. Also, there's heavy involvement in the 150th anniversary with the alumni, and I don't know if you got the note, but there's a block party in May 19th. Is that? I'm not sure what the date, but J50s, which is led by Joe Cantafio, who's an alumnus, will be back to sing 50s music out on the mall. And he first debuted, Jade's 50s first debuted in May of 1970.
Did you get that, Bob? Bob, I think we got the article you've been looking for all night. Let's help work with this.
Okay.
Board member Arkin at his 100th anniversary.
Don't let him dictate to you, Bob.
Bob, let's work on this. We can collaborate.
So no, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of things going on in the fall with the Alumni Association.
All right. Well, it is reunion season. I'm having my 15th high school reunion this weekend.
You're 15?
15, yeah.
The late bloomer, I guess.
How many years did you spend in high school?
But then, any future agenda items?
All the stuff that we just said we did.
I think hearing none. Yes, please.
One is our discussion about representation of board, single board on the board, that is something that we do need to discuss. So, not sure how is it will become an agenda item, special meeting, but it is something that we do need to discuss.
About having.
About having students or faculty or other community members, but that whole piece around whether we want, kind of basically whether or how we want to do that. So that's is what we propose, so we can table that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe in our revision of our document.
Yeah.
We'll call that out.
I just want to put it out there, so.
And that's kind of what I said, that we need to add kind of more governance to our agenda as a kind of a bucket that we, okay, very good, thank you. With that, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Anybody, everyone in favor? Anyone opposed? We are done. Thank you.